party, a conservative center party primarily, but still a conservative party. And she was also the first female chancellor of Germany. I mean, I would wonder if having a female chancellor seems more palatable if she's conservative, because she won't necessarily be fighting for women's rights as much as maybe a left-wing or a center-left candidate might.
And I think if you look at it globally, that's often been the case. Even in Great Britain, Margaret Thatcher was the first prime minister, and she was conservative. She was staunchly conservative. So yeah, it's not surprising, but also I think it's still something positive. You know, it's better to have a female conservative than a male conservative, because at least the female conservative normalizes the idea of a woman in power.
Yes. So that then down the road, when you're starting to elect other, chancellors down the road, it's not such a weird thing to have a female chancellor, and it could be from any party.
Exactly. And I think, Angela Merkel is a good example, because she did normalize the image of a female chancellor.
Yeah.
And a whole generation of people, especially young girls in Germany, grew up with the image of a female chancellor. And I think that changes a lot for people.
It's funny, when Angela Merkel was elected, when she took over the position, the German government did not actually own the URL Bundeskanzlerin with a female ending on it.
Why should they?
I know, right? Because why would you ever need that URL? But somebody had actually a German had actually purchased all of the female titled, websites for Bundespräsident, Bundespräsidentin, for women, with a note on the thing that said, when we have a female chancellor or a female president, I'm happy to give you the site, but I own it until then.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we haven't had a president either, a female president, so up to this point.
Yeah.
It's only been men.
Yeah.
Only men, so I think it's a huge step. I think it's a huge thing. And I mean, of course, this chancellor has not been elected. She's just been chosen by the president as a in-between, government's chancellor.
Sure.
But maybe she paves the way, for an elected female chancellor.
Yeah. So when is the election going to be that will make the decision about the actual government?
So we don't know for sure yet, but the most likely date is either the 22nd of September or the 29th of September, because in Austria, elections are always on Sundays.
Well, honestly, that's not a bad thing, because people don't have to work. They can go, everybody can vote. You don't have, you can leave the polls open all day long and not have to worry about making it there after work. I know that in Germany, a lot of people particularly in conservative areas, they would go to church in the morning and then go right from church to the polling places, because, that was their thing, and everybody was involved. The kids came along to see, because it was so important to vote.
Yeah. I was surprised when I heard for the first time that in America, elections are not held on Sundays.
No, they're held on Thursdays. No, Tuesday.
Yeah, because for me, it's always been I don't know, completely, for me it was always a completely normal thing that elections are on Sundays, because I grew up with it. But then I learned that in other countries it's not that way. And I also learned that in Austria there was a long fight for elections being on Sundays, because people were what about those who can't take off work, Oh, because Sunday is also, some people actually do work on Sunday. Yeah, but usually it's kind of a free day. For most people, it's a free day. And if you work, I think hospitals and institutions like that have their own voting, election place.
Oh, that's nice.
Usually that's what happens, yeah. Also in
you mean to
old
tell
people's
me
homes.
That voting rights are something important in Austria? Making sure that everybody has the ability to vote, and ensuring that people do go to the polls is something that is valued in Austria?
Well, I think the situation is better than in America, at least.
I mean, it's on Tuesdays here. Most elections, not all of them, it depends. But for the major elections, for the presidential elections, it's on the first Tuesday in November. And I mean,
so do you get free from work, or do you get off from work?
No,
you don't. So how? How you...
You can vote before work or after work, depending on when your polling place is open. They're usually open pretty early in the morning. The problem is in a lot of areas in the United States, they have limited the number of polling places available for people. So sometimes you have to travel a pretty far away to actually get to your polling place. And so if you don't have if you take public transportation, if you don't have your own vehicle, if you have to work, whatever, you have to make an extra effort to be able to make it to polling places. A lot of people will organize for, you said that a lot of senior homes and stuff like that, they will have polling places there at the senior center. A lot of people organize volunteer car rides for the elderly to be able to make it to polling places for elderly and people who don't have modes of transportation, to make sure that they do have the ability to vote, because it's really important, and not allowing people to have that mode of transportation, whatever, is disenfranchising them.
But that kind of transportation is organized by people privately. It's nothing like state or government.
No, it's not organized by the government at all.
Now that's a shit show.
We also aren't required to vote. So I remember meeting when I was in Germany, I met a woman from Australia. And in Australia, they are required to vote. I know. And if they aren't able to vote, then they have to, if they're out of the country or whatever, they are required to explain why. But you can get absentee ballots. You can get absentee ballots in the United States too, where you mail them in ahead of time. And some states have actually gone entirely to a mailed ballot. So I think Oregon and Washington maybe. Certainly Oregon has gone to a completely mail-in ballot. So you get it in the mail and you send it back. But that can also lead to issues of fraud, because
exactly. I just was going to ask.
In North Carolina, they had an issue where they were doing, people were getting absentee ballots, and this happened to be the Republican Party. They were going into people's mailboxes, taking the absentee ballots out, filling them out, and then sending them in.
Explain my face right now.
Priceless. Mouth agape in total shock. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. Fuck. Yeah, terrible.
Okay.
I mean,
I don't know what to say right now.
You have to have an election process that you can trust, that each individual who is voting has the right to vote, number one, but also that each individual who has the right to vote is able to vote.
Exactly.
And so there's two sides of that. I know that a lot of people are concerned about making sure that people who aren't eligible to vote aren't voting. And that's, it's different for every state. In some states, convicted felons, even after they've served their time in prison, they're not allowed to vote. Other places they're allowed to. But if someone is allowed to vote, they are registered to vote. They should be allowed to vote. There was a case in North Carolina, I don't have a problem necessarily with people having to show ID to vote. I mean, sometimes it can be a pain, but, and for most services that we need in the United States, you have to have an ID of some sort, whether it's a driver's license or some sort of an ID.
It's the same case in Austria,
But don't make it impossible for people to show their form of identification, right? I mean, don't make it so difficult for someone to show a form of identification that you are disenfranchising them. And that has been what is happening in a lot of places in the United States.
Didn't some places also have the problem of voting, places to be closing down too early so that people couldn't, not enough people could vote?
Yes.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. Well,
closing down too early, not letting people who were in line vote. Getting rid of polling locations so that people couldn't actually make it to their voting locations, or eliminating voting locations and then not telling people that they had eliminating them, and then people showing up to vote and not knowing where they're supposed to vote. There's been a lot of that goes on in the United States.
That's so shitty. So I think the process in Austria works better.
Yeah,
the process itself, but there's also, certain problems. So one of the things that I'm very critical of, and that I've also talked about in my other podcast, is the fact that only people who are österreichische Staatsbürger, so actual citizens of Austria, can vote. Because there are a lot of people
in the United States too.
Yeah. And I think that's very problematic, because there are people living here for decades, and they are Austrians, just not on paper, and they're not allowed to vote. And I think that's something that could be reformed and should be reformed.
How difficult is it to get Austrian citizenship?
It's not easy. And it also takes money.
I mean, it's not easy in the United States either. And it often takes, even if you're here with a green card, which is like a work permit, you're still not eligible to vote. Yeah. Even though you're living here. I mean, I get that. On the one hand, like, yes, you are living in a country, but you're not a citizen of that country. So like, on the one hand, I get it. You're technically a citizen of another country. And, we have, yes, you're paying taxes here, but we have these tax agreements with other countries so that like, whatever. But, the laws that are enacted in your local community, the laws that are voted on by the people who are representing the people in your community are not representing you because you don't get representation.
Yeah.
You're taxed and you don't get representation.
Yeah. And in Austria, there's a huge section of the population. And also, I think it's at the very least, I think citizens of the European Union should be able to vote in the country that they live in.
Oh, that's a good point. I mean, the EU does complicate things in terms of like, they're paying. Yeah. I mean, they are paying into the EU through the taxes that they're paying to their own country or the taxes that they're paying to Austria via tax agreements with their other things. Yeah. Interesting. So yeah. So are you hopeful for the new government?
I mean, nothing could be worse than the one we had before because it was really like right-wing populism and right-wing politics like we've never seen it before. And like just disgusting, to be honest. Sexist, racist, anti-Semitic, anti-refugees, I think the whole, or at least like the left side or the liberal side of the country just had a huge celebration when they heard and learned that the government is impeached.
But is that enough to carry you through to the election to get more like candidates elected?
So I'm going to answer the question in a minute. I'm just going to say something else before that.
Sure.
Because I wanted to tell you, because that's also very funny. I wanted to tell you that, so because of the whole Ibiza video, the song We're Going to Ibiza by the Venga Boys, I don't know if they're well known in America.
We're familiar with them.
Okay. So they've been very popular, I think, all over Europe in the 90s, especially in like the, German speaking part of Europe.
Because Germans go to Ibiza like nobody's business.
Yeah. So yeah, they've been very famous in the 90s. It's like 90s electro dance trash pop. That's why I would describe it. And their song We're Going to Ibiza has become, so it's number one in the charts again in Austria. And it's become the song of the whole protest movement against the government. And it's just so hilarious. Throughout the time that the government's been, governing, every Thursday there's been a demonstration against them, the so-called Donnerstagsdemos. And yesterday there was like the first Donnerstagsdemo after the government's been impeached. And guess who was there as performers?
Stop.
The Venga Boys!
Stop. That's insanity.
Yes. It was, Okay. You need to watch the videos. You need to
we'll post the link to the video and
Instagram and Facebook's been full of the Venga Boys yesterday, and it looked like everybody's had an amazing time. And I couldn't be there because I wasn't in Vienna, and I was very sad about it because it was like a huge party, not just a demonstration, but a huge party, and it looked amazing.
That's hilarious.
So yeah. So now I'm gonna. Yeah.
So do you think that the momentum, like coming out of this, the like anti-right momentum, and it is enough to like carry you through until the elections?
No, I don't think so. And that's a problem. So what we've seen now in the European election with the FPÖ, the right-wing extremist / populist party, they've not lost, like, I think they've only lost 0 point something %